I think Alien is one of the greatest films ever made. It's another Ridley Scott masterpiece that you can hang on the wall and admire like a great oil painting from one of the old masters. And now this 4K disc release means you can view it in the home almost like you would a 35mm print. So please keep watching for a detailed look at this historic film from 1979. Up until now, the culmination of all the home video releases of Alien was the THX certified Blu-ray, which was very good in places and not so good in others. Within this 4K pack, the Blu-ray is included so you can compare it to the new 4K disc, and you should find the differences noticeable almost immediately. The Blu-ray has that sort of blue look to it and evident crushing in the blacks, whereas the 4K displays that increasingly familiar HDR look with nicer colour and superior contrast. It really is substantially superior to look at. Prior to this, the DVD release came with an excellent extras disc, which was what I purchased it for. I've never watched the feature on disc 1, other than perhaps a cursory look out of curiosity. Likewise, the myriad LaserDisc releases, the most notable of which was the NTSC CAV box containing an exceptional extras disc, which was one of those special releases that influenced the later disc formats and hence all the extras that quickly started appearing on early DVDs. But the reason I never had the need to watch Alien on disc was because in 1990 or 91, Duran Film Services obtained rights from Fox to issue Alien full-length in scope on Super 8. I've therefore been fortunate enough to enjoy this film on a big screen as it was intended to be seen ever since. It isn't the best picture quality ever obtained on Super 8, but it isn't too far off. But my history and fascination with Alien began in 1979, when I was just too young to sneak into an exotification at my local cinema. Fortunately, Ken Films released a 17-minute 400-foot Super 8 edited version that same year, so I was able to see the highlights of the film over and over and over again. In fact, it is probably this Super 8 reel that did more than anything else to fuel my love of the movies. And studying the editing to successfully condense a film down to such a short running time has proved invaluable in recent years. It also made me appreciate the less is more approach that Ridley Scott applied when making Alien. The rarely seen 200-foot digest is essentially just the first half of the 400-foot reel with a couple of additional cuts and ends with a chestburster sequence. I saw it on a stall at a British Film Collectors Convention for just £2, and I liked the box, so that was that. VHS copies of the film were always poor quality, and those I had were NTSC format converted to PAL for the UK market, and this process always results in wishy-washy imagery, so the only way I could get a decent copy of Alien for the UK was to record it off the telly when ITV broadcast the film, and with dexterous use of the pause button, edit out the adverts on the fly. The end result wasn't the ideal way to watch this feature, and I still prefer to watch the Super 8 cutdown, even if just for the big screen impact it provided. Then in July 1990, my wife and I had the ultimate Alien trip, a 70mm screening at the Odeon Marble Arch on the curvaceous 58-foot wide screen. However, I have to say that my recollection of this occasion is that the picture quality was not of the usual exceptional 70mm quality, and that is because Alien was shot in Panavision 35mm, and so the resultant 70mm prints were unsqueezed blow-ups from the anamorphic negative. Ordinarily you would think that a 70mm print of the film would be the ultimate Alien collectible, but you will be mistaken, because low-fade film stocks were not generally available in 1979, and so all the original 70mm and 35mm prints have suffered fade and turned a sort of salmon pink colour. All is not lost though, as the so-called director's cut in 2003 meant new 35mm prints were struck on low-fade film, and these are probably therefore the ultimate Alien collectible. And now that I mention the director's cut, it seems that someone producing the negative, or involved with producing the negative, had a bit of a sense of humour and perhaps a little artistic flair, as shown on the tail of Reel 2, something I doubt many people have ever seen. Until now, that is. This is the programme sold at Premiere Theatres upon original release, and for many of us this was the first Alien collectible we purchased, but many others would follow over the years. I purchased Jerry Goldsmith's fabulous score on vinyl from my local branch of WH Smith for £5.49, and this record differed from the later silver screen release in that it had the 20th Century Fox record label and H.R. Giger style design work on the back. Silver Screen had a much more informative back cover, but despite the visible differences, the discs themselves are identical. I also snapped up the Book of Alien, which I believe is still available new today, albeit with a different cover. But this introduced me to how the film was made and furthered my interest in special effects that had first been piqued by Star Wars just the year before. Other collectibles were added over the years, which included a few items that are nothing more than toys, and some of these are on display around the house. But I do love the Space Jockey kit that took me quite some time to prepare and assemble many years ago. That is my favourite scene from the film, and has fascinated me from the day I first saw it. A massive set was made to look even bigger by using children in the astronaut suits, and combined with slightly over-cranking the camera to slow down their movements, it made for an entirely convincing illusion. The design work of Giger, allied to Ridley Scott's artistic eye and approach to the medium of film, made for pure cinematic magic, and I think that perfectly describes Alien as a whole. Every scene is beautifully crafted, and yes, there may be a couple of sudden edits where even the sound is abruptly chopped off, and there may be the dodgy effect when the robot's head is on the table prior to the quick cut to Ian Holmes' live head sticking through the table, but these are minor quibbles within a film that is widely considered historic. To successfully disguise a man in a suit as a convincing, terrifying creature from another world had never been achieved before, and even when we do see the alien in its complete form at the very end, we have by then been convinced that this menacing creature is indeed something deadly that really does need to be blasted out of the ship. This alien figure is actually based on the creatures from the 1986 sequel Aliens, and I have many other collectibles from both Aliens and the later Alien sequels. I only ever saw Alien 3 once, and that was enough, so I remembered little from that film other than I didn't enjoy it much, but the other films, Aliens and Alien Resurrection, do stand on their own, with Aliens in particular being another great film. But both these films do have one fundamental flaw, and that is that they both have the same ending as the original film. Yes, it might be served up slightly differently each time, but they are both essentially the same ending, involving the creature being blown out of the ship. This 16mm reel contains an extract that possibly coincidentally contains a sequence released to television companies, and I remember seeing this on Film 79 with Barry Norman. The film generally didn't get the best of reviews in the press, and I remember reading one that stated that Alien would be quickly forgotten. How wrong that critic was. He also cited the poor characterisation, but I disagree with that one too. Right from the first viewing of the film, you know everything you need to know about each character and who we are losing as the alien gradually kills each of the crew. The same cannot be said for any of the sequels, as it takes a few viewings to get to know each character and who is being killed off as the film progresses. So I think this film, more than any other, is responsible for my love of the movies, and if it hadn't been for that original Super 8 release all those years ago in 1979, I don't think I would have become the film enthusiast that I am today. The image ratio of the 4K disc is the original 35mm aspect of 2.4 to 1, and the sound is now 5.1 DTS-HD. Sound was always subtle on this film, so don't expect anything resembling a modern action film, but I think it perfectly suits the imagery on screen. There aren't many bonus items, and short of the isolated Jerry Goldsmith scores, I think all the other extras have been available before. As I said at the start, this latest video transfer projects to look similar to a 35mm print. It's not quite as natural as film, but I suspect it would look even better on more expensive equipment, so it's important to remember that we are using domestic equipment and not the latest 4K presentation you get in your local multiplex. Bear in mind that I got this from HMV for just £15, and I think that puts into perspective exactly how good this really is. Yes, I will always prefer to watch this film on film, simply because film has a magic all of its own that video will never be able to match, but this does represent exceptional value. For me, the purring of a movie projector in the background tells me that something special is being presented when running a film, and it takes me back to those cinema visits as a boy when I would look to the back of the auditorium to see the beam of light emanating from the projection porthole. On occasion I would even glimpse the projectionist threading up the film, and perhaps also the reels turning around. A visit to the cinema back then was a special occasion, and that's something I think we've largely lost in the modern world. I've kept it alive in a small way here in our home cinema, with Alien still a special part of it more than 40 years after first seeing the film. So if you are considering purchasing this 4K disc release, you can rest assured it gets a resounding recommendation from me. However, do bear in mind that as good as it is at representing 35mm, it's not going to be the best 4K disc you ever saw. Alien was a dark film. Film itself back in 1979, the grain structures probably weren't as good as when they were at their heights, so it is not going to be your best 4K disc, but compares very well to 35mm. Alien had a wonderful cast, but at the time many of them were largely unknown. Being a member of the BFI for many years, I had the chance to attend on-stage interviews with a couple of them, and the late John Hurt appeared on stage after the 1998 premiere of the film he starred in, Night Train, a great little film which hardly anyone has seen. After the film and before the interview, I took the opportunity to pop to the gents, and a few seconds after, another gent walked in behind me, and without looking I just knew it was John Hurt. Quite a memorable situation. When we were washing our hands, I took the opportunity to tell him how much I enjoyed the film, and also told him that Alien was one of my favourite films, to which he replied that many people had told him the same thing over the years. Anyway, you should have seen the look on my wife's face when we came out of the gents, laughing and chatting. But it was one of those rare occasions where I was able to talk to one of our greatest ever actors, and also about a film in which he appeared, well, he was the star of one of the most iconic scenes in cinema history, the chestburster scene. Anyway, during the interview with the large audience assembled, he actually, and I felt he was talking to me at this stage, they got onto Alien and he did an impersonation of his acting performance during the chestburster scene in his chair. Everyone in the audience thought it was hilarious, and it's just one of those occasions I will never forget. And so I don't think this is widely available. We found it years after the 1998 premiere, and it's not the best of DVDs. They didn't white, they didn't 16:9 it actually, but if it is available on Blu-ray or DVD, this is certainly worth a look. It's quite a brutal film in places, but that is a juxtaposition to the beautiful relationship between the Brenda Blethyn and John Hurt characters. It's another piece of cinema magic, so worth looking out for. Probably not as good as John Hurt's performance in The Elephant Man, but he's very good again. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like and perhaps consider subscribing so I'll be encouraged to create similar content again in the future. Until the next video, bye bye for now.